Coming up on River City Presents, Todd Holloman. Welcome to River City Presents. I'm Daniel Hurt. Oftentimes we're concerned with taking ourselves too seriously, especially in politics and in the media. Joining me today to talk about comedy is comedian and internet personality Todd Holloman. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. I was expecting some applause there, but
No.
Will that be edited in later?
Yeah, we're actually going to, we'll edit that in, absolutely, 100%.
Also
yes.
laughs.
Yes, well, I don't get many of those, but, we're glad to have you here. Maybe we'll get an audience next time after I prove to them that we're capable of being funny. But,
I will be on your first show.
yes, absolutely. But tell me a little bit, because you're an internet personality and comedian, and you've done stand-up and a variety of things. So tell me a little bit about, in the audience, about what you do. I guess like you said, I've done stand-up comedy, mainly locally in the tri-state area. I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years. I used to do improv comedy. I was a member of Paducah Improv for 4 years, in the original group of that. And I've done radio, I've done live theater, write, and I post a lot of ridiculous things on the internet that went viral for some reason, and here we are. And you've upset people,
Yes.
but you're not doing it right if you don't.
Exactly, yeah. Comedy's not always meant to be comforting.
Yes, so who influenced you?
Comedy-wise?
Yeah.
Number one, Bill Hicks.
Really?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see Bill back in 1991 in Nashville. Had no idea who he was, but just showed up at Zany's Comedy Club and was on a date. Went, hey, let's go see a comedy show. Bill Hicks was there. He came out on stage and for 2 hours straight just took that audience and took them to anger, to laughter, and just back and forth and everything in between. And it really was a like Paul on the road to Damascus moment. I saw the light, and I was like, eventually I want to be able to do that. And it only took me another 20 years to try it after that. So. Yeah.
But that's cool. You had a moment where you're like, whatever that is, that's what I want to do. And I sort of felt that way about politics, and then they decided to give me a TV show, which they're out of their mind. I'd always said I wanted to have a TV show, and then they asked me one day if I wanted to do it, and I was like, you have no idea what you've done. But one of the things about comedy, though, that you talked about improv. I mean, improvisation's a skill in itself. So how do you think on your feet so quickly? How does that?
Well, improv done correctly is kind of like a magic trick. When we first started Paducah Improv, there were a few who had done it before, but mostly we were just kind of learning. And when you're doing improv, the number one rule is, of course, you all hear yes and, agreement is very important, and you're part of a team, and each team member supports the other. And there actually is a formula that improvisers go by when it comes to like performing a scene, whether it's a 2 or 3 person scene. There's just these different steps that you take, and hopefully, by following those steps, it looks effortless and it looks funny and you look really amazing, but really you're following a formula. Like I said, when it works right, it looks like a magic trick because the audience is like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
But really there actually is a formula for doing improv successfully.
And one of the things that I know that you've done stand-up and improvisation sort of the same way, but like when you interact with the audience, isn't that taking a risk? Aren't you sort of, it can go real bad, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, in improv and stand-up, I mean, I've been on stage and doing improv many times, and you get about 2 or 3 minutes into a scene and you're like, this is not working at all. How do we get out of this? And stand-up can be the same way. I mean, obviously there's not a good stand-up comedian out there who hasn't had to deal with hecklers, and that's one of those things that can go either way because the audience expects you to respond, and you can take it too far you know?
Yeah.
And actually be like personally hurtful and insulting to someone, you know? And
so if it's going bad, do you like accept that? Can you like, it's like breaking the fourth wall maybe? You just sort of, this bit's not working, gang.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I will. I mean, that goes back to like Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. When a bit would fall flat, he would like shine a spotlight on it and go, hey, you know.
It's like Karnak the Magnificent or whatever, he's telling a joke and Ed would be having one too many or something, and it would be going slow, and he'd just be like, guys, I don't think this is working tonight.
Nobody wants to see somebody on stage tell a joke that doesn't work and get angry at the audience because they didn't laugh. You know, it's like that's just an angry guy berating people. You know, I mean, you do share a certain amount of responsibility. You know, to let's see, how do I put this? When you're on stage, your job as a comedian is to make the audience laugh. That's the number one job. That is job one. If you can make them think while they're laughing, even better. But number one, you got to make them laugh. And if you're not making them laugh, then you're not doing your job.
And I think that, you know, comedians like Jon Stewart do a really good job of that, making you think while making you laugh. I think late night in general does.
Sure. I was raised on late night TV. That's where a lot of we were talking about influences earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, David Letterman would definitely be one. Other stand-ups, I personally think Richard Pryor is the greatest.
He's one of my favorites.
He's the greatest stand-up comedian of all time.
I saw that Sunset Strip performance where
that's legendary.
The red suit episode. For those that may need to have a visual cue, but
absolutely. Also, I'll just run off some more names because I don't want to leave anybody out like they're tuning in. But
Dave's watching. Yes.
George Carlin, Robin Williams, Steve Martin. You know, so many.
So what do you think? So when you write for stand-up, is a lot of it just sort of experiences brought from life, or what is the difference? Is it a lot of pen to paper kind of writing?
It is. Stand-up is hard, like I said, because you're a one-man show. You're out there by yourself, and that is at once thrilling, and I'm kind of a control freak, so I enjoyed that aspect of it, but it's also horrifying, because if things do go wrong, you don't have a team member to come out and kind of give you a hand.
They're going to get the hook.
And that's another thing, you know, hecklers, I've met so many people who are like, hope you didn't mind me heckling, I was just trying to help the show. It's like, if you're, let me look right into the camera. If you're heckling, you're never helping the show. We don't need it. Thank you. But yeah, and personal experience, I think, if I were to give advice to anybody who was just getting into stand-up comedy, it would be to write jokes about your own life and the people you know. I mean, start from there, because as long as you're being yourself, there's never going to be anybody else like you.
Right, and
you know,
it's sort of your own authentic brand.
Yeah, exactly. You know, whether you're doing jokes about politics or doing, you know, like some kind of absurdist humor like Stephen Wright or Mitch Hedberg, you know, as long as you're being true to yourself, then you know you're on the right track.
Can you give me an example of something that you've used in your bits from your own personal life that maybe you've included in your work over the years?
Oh, absolutely. The first stand-up bit that I ever wrote was purely based on personal experience, something that really happened, and I still, to this day, will include it. You know, if I'm performing for an audience who's never seen me before, and without getting into the gory details, it was about a early sexual experience at a Christian summer camp.
How about that was really interesting?
Yeah.
But
that's one word for it. But I actually did that bit at a show the first time my mom saw me do stand-up, and I apologized to her before I did the bit and just launched into it.
It's a good setup, though.
Yeah. Here's something that happened at church camp. Sorry, Mom.
You know, one of the things that, of course, you know, I worked in politics for 10 years, and so one of the stories I like to tell just from my personal life is we had a guy running for sheriff of an unnamed county, but he said, you know where it is, and he said, Daniel, do you have any encyclopedias? He said, I need to get some World Britannicas. And I said, well, I mean, I don't have any. It's 2014. You know, you can just look on your phone. But he was like, no, I want some encyclopedias. I said, I can find some. What do you need them for? He said,
What was he wanting to look up?
well, how to run a campaign, obviously.
Apparently.
But he said, I want to stand in front of him and have my picture made because I think that would make me look smart for my campaign literature. And it's like, you know, sure. I mean, I don't think that's going to win you the election, but
Hey, that guy would kill on Zoom.
yeah, that's right.
And my encyclopedia's behind me.
If you'll notice, I've got that's exactly right. If you'll notice, I've got the Britannica. You know, I wasn't going to vote for him, but he had the Global Britannica.
Guy's got encyclopedias. He probably knows the definition of aardvark.
Depends on which, you know, if you mention a couple letters, you might be a little short. But, you know.
He doesn't have the L because it's got liberal in it.
Well, that's actually interesting because I want to talk about you know, making fun of presidents and
Yes,
famous
please.
political people. Yeah, of course. It seems to me now maybe this is wrong, but it seems to me that Republican politicians at the national level is good business for comedians, kind of like Democrats in office is good for gun manufacturers. They all
Absolutely, yeah.
You got to go out and buy them. So.
Yeah, because you know they're going to show up at your house any day and take them all away from you. So you got to stockpile. This is something that comes up a lot, just you know, in general conversation, talking to other comedians and talking to people who come to shows. I've had people numerous times ask me, was Donald Trump good for comedy? And my response is always, well, he was good for comedy in the way that radiation is good for cancer. I mean, you know, it'll get the job done, but when it's over, you feel sick and nauseous. You know.
That's true.
It is. I mean, let me say before we get like deep into the weeds on the whole political comedy thing.
Yeah.
I would take competent leadership. I would give up the jokes for competent leadership any day. Okay, you know, I'll write jokes about something else. You know, as long as like the country's in good shape. You know,
yeah.
But
you can get your encyclopedias out.
But exactly. Let's see what's funny about the Eiffel Tower. But yeah, it is. It is much easier as a leftist to make fun of the right wing because they are so much more ridiculous so much of the time, you know. And one of the things that I do, not every comedian does it, but I always try to punch up instead of punching down. You know, it's more fun for me to make fun of people in power than it is to make fun of people who have no power. And I think that's where a lot of right-wing comedy doesn't work, is because you have people who have a tremendous amount of power making fun of people who don't. And I think that's why a lot of right-wing comedy doesn't work for me personally. Because to me, you can sum up right-wing comedy with one bit. They have one joke, and it's a variation on, well, I identify as a tractor. Everything just springs out of that. It's just like, you know, the whole pronoun thing, and they're not big fans of LGBTQ people, and so identify as a helicopter. And I mean, that's it. It's all a variation of that.
You know, it's funny because, you know, that's the thing when Fancy Farm comes up, the political speaking, you know, one of the things that they always do is they have political comedy and
Sure.
people who, you know, you have people who are not comedians writing jokes about things that they think are funny, and it usually comes off as...
Oh, I know. I saw Daniel Cameron asking people on Twitter for zingers, and I was like, oh, this is going to be bad.
When you're asking the Twitterverse.
You're asking people on Twitter to give you zingers. Yeah, it's over. I do think, though, that it is important that we be able to laugh at ourselves, especially politically, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not above, if Joe Biden does something funny, I'm going to point it out. You know, it's fine. And let's be honest, Joe Biden does a lot of funny stuff.
Yeah. Well,
You know, and it's not... It's fine. Joe Biden is the leader of the free world. And making fun of Joe Biden is the exact opposite of punching down.
It's keeping them honest. You know, it's kind of like being the journalistic fourth estate. You sort of, if you can't make fun of them, then, you know, the day that the government comes in and starts limiting who you can make fun of is for those who are concerned about liberty.
Yes.
This is one of those moments.
That is game over. Because people, especially, we'll say center-leaning liberals. What was the Clinton liberals? What was the
New Democrats?
The New Democrats. Yeah, people from that wing of the party. If I make a joke about Nancy Pelosi on Facebook, my comments are all, "You're helping the other side, Todd. This is not helping us. You're just helping the other side." It's like, no, I'm trying to keep my side honest, because the day that we can't laugh at ourselves, because that's what the other side does, and I don't want my side to become like the other side.
And
because that other side has gone full-blown fundamentalist. And one of the things that I'll always remember that Bill Hicks said was that fundamentalism breeds no irony. There's no sense of humor there. Once you take something and make it sacred and say you can't make fun of this, then you
cross the line when you start making jokes about that.
Absolutely.
And I've always said that my philosophy, like I'm a comedian, like I know, but my philosophy is, if it's funny, make the joke, and that's just the deal. And I think that we shouldn't be afraid to upset some folks, in power, or people on the other political side, or our own side.
I think it is okay for comedy to be challenging, but the flip side of that is, I think one of the things I see a lot, especially from big name comedians now, particularly male comedians, is it's okay to make a joke, and if it doesn't work, to admit that the joke doesn't work. Because I think a lot of times comedians nowadays will try to double down on something instead of just saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. Because even George Carlin said years ago, comedy should evolve. And something that was funny 10 years ago might not be so funny today.
Yeah.
But you have people who still well, I was doing this 10 years ago and I'm still going to do it. I don't care what you say. And they get a Netflix special and make millions of dollars that's called "I've Been Canceled." How?
Actually,
how have you been canceled?
It's a Netflix show.
Yeah, exactly. You're on Netflix. You're making millions of dollars. Who's been canceled?
Please cancel me. Cancel me and give me a show on Netflix.
Absolutely.
I will take it. But, one of the things that I thought was interesting is in conservative comedy, Dennis Miller was sort of famous for being the conservative comedian. But now Fox News has their own comedy show running opposite Colbert and Jimmy Fallon. They were like, we got to get in on this, like, Stephen Colbert thing. He's winning late night. We got to get in on this ideologically. So there's this guy named Greg Gutfeld, I think, which Gutfeld in itself is a fantastic name for a TV show. It gets the kids watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just hearing the name Gutfeld out loud is hilariously funny, and probably the funniest thing about him. But the fact that I believe the official title of the show is Gutfeld because it has an exclamation mark at the end of it.
He's borrowed the Jeb.
Like it's Jeb, and it's like
maybe they'll get him to ask if he can please clap.
I mean, am I watching a politician or a comedy show, or is it a Broadway musical? I don't know. It's like, Fascism, the musical.
So tell me about what you think about the I guess Ben Shapiro sort of thinks that he's funny at times, but I mean, but you've got people like him and Gutfeld. What do you think? Do you think we're looking at a future of cable news comedy where they, instead of the networks, you just tune into your various ideological bubbles?
Well, I hope not. I mean, we may definitely be heading in that direction, but I hope not, because we were talking before we started taping about like the guys that we loved, growing up, like Letterman and Conan O'Brien, and one of the things I mentioned was that the thing that I miss in late night comedy right now is the sense of the absurd. It's like nobody's doing goofy stuff anymore. I mean, Letterman used to do, he had the chimp cam and the top 10 list, and they would just drop stuff off of a building.
He would have bits that he would just do for like 2 weeks and then completely forget about.
Absolutely. He had a bit called "Is This Anything?" and they would just open the curtain and it would be somebody doing something. It's like, and he
is
would
that something?
Is that something? No? Okay. Yeah.
Or, I wouldn't do that if it were a monkey on a rock.
Yep, exactly. And so, yeah, I miss that because late night, there was always... late night comedians, I mean, going back to Johnny Carson, always made jokes about politicians. There's always been political jokes, but now it seems like that's all it is. I mean, I guess Jimmy Fallon does some fun stuff. I mean, with the lip syncing and getting celebrities to play different games and everything. I mean, he's
sort of
fine,
like Jay Leno. He's the nice guy.
Exactly.
But that's a good question because one of the things aside from the political comedy has always been like. It seems to me that Jimmy Fallon and Conan O'Brien were all better at 11:30, 12:30 than they were when they got like the Tonight Show. It's like when you get to 10:30, you think you've got to be careful or something, and it's like that's not why they hired you. They hired you to do the thing that you do.
I miss Colbert on Comedy Central when he was doing the Colbert Report, when he was playing that right-wing talking head, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson kind of guy. He thought he was much more vicious and much more entertaining back then. And like I said, I get it. You're being paid millions of dollars to entertain the country, But I feel like the one who did that the best was Letterman. Kind of found that sweet spot where he was still true to himself, but he also found a way to make it palatable to a large audience. He just toned it down a
little bit.
Yeah, just toned it down a little bit.
But he was never going to change it. So I think going to CBS is really what helped him do that because he sort of got through that I don't care thing,
Absolutely. I honestly, those of you who are too young to remember, there was this thing called the Late Night Wars, and it was Jay Leno versus David Letterman, and because Carson always wanted Letterman to take over the Tonight Show, and I think Dave deserved the Tonight Show. However,
I agree.
However, I don't know that it would have been the best thing for Dave if it had happened.
Really?
Yeah, because that Tonight Show audience. Look what happened to Conan when he took over the Tonight Show.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's...
So something else I want to ask you before we run out of time is social media. So you're like the master of the memes on Facebook. So tell me a little bit. You've had some go quite viral, right?
Yeah. It's, like I've had them... pop up on like CNN, like, oh, here's a thing trending on Twitter, or something. It's very, it's thrilling and it's scary because once you go viral on the internet, that puts you on the radar of a bunch of people you don't want to be on the radar of.
You're a target as well as.
Yeah, exactly. So your inbox gets very interesting, but. I just turned 53 years old, and there is no reason for a 53-year-old man to be making viral memes on the internet. It's kind of embarrassing, but here we are.
I enjoy it.
I appreciate that. Other people do, and I'm so glad they do, but this is, if you had asked me 20 years ago what I was going to be doing in my 50s, it would not be making SpongeBob memes, but here we are.
I can say the whole like high school reunion or the high school graduation speech thing and say, well, everything happens for a reason and we're all what we're supposed to be. But what are some of your favorite memes? Because they can communicate a lot of things. I really like the one with the guy looking at the girl and his girlfriend getting mad.
That one is classic. That template fits so many different situations. I mean, that's my favorite thing, I think, about memes is just taking something out of context and putting it into a totally different context and making it funny. I mean, that's the secret, I think there are a lot of people out there who still don't quite understand memes because, like, I use SpongeBob as an example. If I do a meme that has like a SpongeBob character on it, people will be in the comments going, I don't think SpongeBob would have said that. And it's like, well, it's not. I'm not screen capping the SpongeBob show.
He did, actually. You should go back and watch that episode. But yeah, no, I think that's fair. I always like the one that's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where he's pointing at the TV.
Oh, that's a great one. There's actually let me think. What are some of my favorites? I'm a big fan of there's like this. It's like a montage of like a dude on a beach, like sad with like sand falling through his fingers, and I love the cowboy who's like screaming at the sky. He's like hitting a high note or something. You can put so many cool things on that. But yeah, there's and also the is this a butterfly that's been like turned into so many different things.
There's one of my favorites, which was especially relevant to me at one time, was I had applied for a job that they said, we'll call you back. And it keeps bringing me to that meme of the guy that's like wandering around quietly, like waiting at the beach, and then he's sitting on the park bench, you know.
Yes.
And it's like, I felt like that guy for a brief period of time. But like,
there's also this great, it's a 4-panel square, and each of the 4 panels is like Quentin Tarantino just wandering around the house. It's amazing.
yeah, I mean, the power of social media, you can communicate. It's a cultural thing, but it's cross-cultural. You don't have to be young to get the power of the meme or to be entertained
absolutely,
by it. But like,
absolutely.
it's definitely something that's new. But before we go, I want to ask you, so you announced a little bit ago on social media that you're starting your own writing project. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I am. I'm going to be on Patreon. People will be able to subscribe to it. I've been writing short stories, and they're not funny. I will go ahead and say that. This is I'm a huge horror movie fan. I grew up reading Stephen King. It's just another aspect of my personality that I haven't really put out there, and so I've been writing horror fiction, and this will be an outlet for me to get that out into the world. And I will also be writing like my normal like political stuff, like essays and different commentary on things. But mainly it's going to be there to for me to get my horror fiction out into the world.
But you're also on the film board, right, at Maiden Alley, so you watch short films, right?
Oh yeah, I'm on the River's Edge International Film Festival Committee coming up in November at Maiden Alley Cinema. So yeah, we watch all the submissions and choose the ones for the festival. And my wife has just ended her term as board chair of Maiden Alley. She's been doing that for years, and we're big movie people. And there's one more thing I want to promote.
Oh yes, yes.
I'm wearing a T-shirt. It says Bastard Quest. Maybe, hopefully, they won't like pixelate that out. But
the whole 30 minutes.
But it's a podcast that I do with my friends Corey Green, Kyle Davis, and Austin Matting.
Austin, yeah.
Yeah, you know Austin, local filmmaker. What we do is we play different role-playing games. We had another podcast before where we did a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. People seemed to enjoy it, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So now this is what we do. It's called Bastard Quest. You can find us on all the social media stuff. Spotify, iTunes. We're on all of that wherever you listen to podcasts, and we just play different role-playing games. So far, we've played like a Dune role-playing game, Star Wars, G.I. Joe. We even did a Jane Austen role-playing game, and we do try very hard to play by the rules of the game, but also put our own ridiculous and absurd spin on it.
Well, this will be on Paducah too, but also on social media. So like everybody will get to see, your comedy and hear about the things that you're up to. But
cool.
I want to thank you for coming on, Todd. As always, I appreciate your friendship, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's do this again because this was fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Daniel.
We have a lot to talk about, and there's never enough time to talk about comedy. But that is my guest, Todd Holloman, comedian and internet personality. Maybe. Well, thank you all for watching, and hope you'll join us next time.